What's up, everyone? Welcome to This Day in Philly Sports History for February 2nd, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Sunday edition of the podcast, the 1 week before the Super Bowl, Sunday edition, 1 week from our three keys to the game and preparing to take on the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59. Happy Groundhog's Day to everyone out there as well. Phil saw a shadow. That means 6 more weeks of winter. But it got me thinking, let's have a little bit of fun on Groundhog's Day. And we'll start off with the question of the day. If you could go back and revisit any era of Philly sports, any moment, whatever it is, what would it be in honor of the movie Groundhog's Day? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. For me, the obvious answers are the World Series and the Super Bowl and everything. But I think if I could go back to like a specific year in Philly sports history, it'd be 2001. All of the teams were either in the playoffs or good. You had that magical Sixers run, which just was amazing. Everybody coming together and things like that. You had the Phillies, who were about to have their first winning season since the 93 World Series. The Eagles were starting to come into their own under Donovan McNabb. Flyers were perennial Eastern Conference Final, Stanley Cup contenders. It was a good time. But what do you think? What era or what year, what moment in Philly sports would you love to live over again and again and again? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let's have some fun on Groundhog's Day. We might as well recap yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, was Willie Mays the GOAT of Major League Baseball? 75% of you said yes. Shout out to Ken from Wyncote, who kind of summed it up good. Willie Mays is the best all-around player ever. But then you have like Babe Ruth and what he was doing. And he mentioned this, and I've said this before on the podcast too, that Babe Ruth is kind of in that mythical sort of area where what he did was just ridiculous. It was Babe Ruth, Wilt Chamberlain, Tiger Woods. Those guys are like on that level. So thank you, Ken, for reaching out. Thank you for everybody who reached out to answer the question of the day. And going back to the day before, the TikTok video did get restored. And that number for the Philly bias ended up being closer to 90%. So everybody thinks there's a Philly bias. There is. Not sure why. All right, some quick housekeeping notes. Still not too late to buy some Girl Scout cookies. The link is in the description. Help Ella out. You're going to buy them anyway. At this point, you're probably on your second round. So go support Ella. Buy the cookies in the link. And then be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. At Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and continue to spread the word. And then go check out our friends over at the On Pattison newsletter. Great Philly sports coverage, and that will get delivered right to your inbox. We're featured in there a couple times a week, so go support them, check them out, and all of that other good stuff. All right, today is the day. Sixers this evening against Boston at the Wells Fargo Center. Will I be back in? We'll find out soon. No Joe, no PG. It's going to be tough going, but we'll see what happens. I'm telling you, if they win, Lucy, get that football ready because I'm back on board. But some good news out of, I missed this the other day, and I really, really like this. And I don't know if it's part of the deal with keeping the Sixers in South Philly, but the ownership group, to their credit, everybody's been ripping Josh Harris recently, but they did put in a bid for a WNBA expansion team. Looks like the WNBA within the next year or two is looking to expand to 16 teams, and Philly certainly makes a strong case. A lot of other good groups and cities on there, but some teams that had WNBA before are on there, like Houston, and personally, I'm like, to me, they should go to the back of the list. Give a city like Philly a chance to have a WNBA team. I think it would be good for the city. I think it would be good for basketball. It would be good for the WNBA. I'm excited about it. I really hope that this ends up going through. All right, Flyers also in action today out in Colorado. Anxious to see how they respond. Can they bounce back from being shut out 2 times in a row? How will they respond to the trade, which, excuse me, from a rebuilding perspective, it is a good trade. But how do the players respond to that? And I think it's important to remember that this team is rebuilding. But after back-to-back shutouts and then the trade where it's obvious that you're not going to bring in anybody at the trade deadline to make the team better in a sense of making a playoff push. I'm really excited to see how they respond to that this afternoon. All right, be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things happening with their Sports Fan Network. Go support Greg as everybody is ripping him despite his Eagles being in the Super Bowl. That is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. And then go to Philly Goat. Literally have you covered head to toe. All of your Philly sports apparel needs. They were just featured, I believe it was in the Inquirer, where they're one of the top places to buy Eagles gear. So go support Philly Goat. See what all the hype is about. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. That's phillygoat.com. Promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, on to the Eagles. And I missed this press conference the other day, but Jalen's conference on Thursday was asked what was his most vivid memory from Super Bowl 57. And he seemed a little agitated with it and gave a simple answer. Next question. It just seems like he's locked in. But good thing another reporter asked a good follow-up and said, well, what can you take and learn from that? And he said, that's better. And went on to say just knowing what to expect with the media circus and all of the craziness that's going to start this coming week. But he just seems locked in. I love it. I absolutely love it. He is locked in. Today is the send-off party. Probably by the time you're listening to this, the send-off party is probably going on. I'm recording this at 8:15, so in 45 minutes it starts. And then they're on to New Orleans. And the next time we see them, they will be Super Bowl champion. Still no word on Kellen Moore yet, but the word seems as though the Eagles are starting to prepare for life after Kellen. But to his credit, he's made it clear that he wants to wait to do anything till after the Super Bowl to avoid distraction, which is 100% different than Jonathan Gannon, who was already moving stuff into his office the week of the Super Bowl. So that's good. And I did see a report that the Saints are telling other candidates that they are moving on. So it seems like it's one of those things. As soon as the Super Bowl is over, it will be announced that Kellen Moore is leaving, which from a front office kind of perspective, it does give the Eagles an opportunity to start looking at potential candidates as they're still preparing for the Super Bowl and everything. But shout out and kudos to Kellen Moore for putting it in perspective and saying, hey, let's do this after the Super Bowl. The other big news was the Rams and Eagles will play in Australia in 2026 in Melbourne, which is pretty cool. It's kind of one of those things. We saw the Brazil trip and all of that, and I think it's just the byproduct of the Eagles being an attractive team and a profitable team. So we'll see what happens. Pretty cool for Jordan Mailata, though, as they're going to Melbourne in 2026. Let's have a little bit of fun with the Eagles as they're going off to the Super Bowl today, and it will also sort of end the fluffy stuff we've been doing. We can actually start getting into the Super Bowl content starting tomorrow. But when did you know that this team was a Super Bowl team? And I heard this on the radio one morning or read it somewhere. And it's an interesting conversation because at 2-2, I don't think many people thought that this team was going to the Super Bowl. Certainly not after the Cleveland game either. But was it the Cincinnati game, the Rams game after they beat Baltimore and Pittsburgh? To me, I think that Cincinnati game showed what they were capable of. They didn't really start getting it together, really, though, until that Rams game. And then it really solidified it for me after the Baltimore game that they went in there, a presumptive Super Bowl contender from the AFC, and just pretty much out-physicaled them. But what about you? That is our bonus question of the day. When did you know that this Eagles team was a Super Bowl contender? 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let's have some fun on a Sunday. All right, today we're going to go back to 1968. And on this day in 1968, the Sixers beat the Pistons 131-121 at the Spectrum. And Wilt Chamberlain, as he typically did, had himself a night. He scored the NBA's first ever double triple-double. What is that, you might ask? 22 points, 25 rebounds, 21 assists. So 20-20-20, the first ever 20-20-20 game in NBA history. Really bizarre to me that he only had one of these. I would have thought that there were multiple 20-20-20 games in Wilt's career, but only the one. That year, the Sixers were the defending champs. Wilt would go on to win his third straight MVP, and a little more with the triple-doubles. Wilt, surprisingly, only had 78 career triple-doubles, and that is good enough for 9th all-time. I mean, I guess that's nothing to sneeze at, but I thought he would have been higher. He was alleged to have a quintuple-double later that year in 1968. But on this day, it was the 20-20-20 game, a double, triple-double. The only other person in NBA history to do that, Russell Westbrook back in 2019 had a 20-20-20 game. And for those keeping score at home, Russell Westbrook has the most triple-doubles of all time. But on this day in 1968, Wilt Chamberlain with the 20-20-20 game, the NBA's first double, triple-double with 22 points, 25 rebounds, and 21 assists. Like I always say, we can always do a This Day in Wilt Chamberlain history. Finally today, we are going to continue our Black History Month special on Black History Legacy Makers with Philly ties. Today we're going to look at Wali Jones. And Wali was a Mantua native, Overbrook graduate, went to Villanova, was a graduate from Villanova. He was a two-time Big Five MVP, won multiple city titles while at Overbrook. He was a third-round pick of the Pistons. He was the starting point guard on that 66-67 Sixers team that won the NBA championship. He was an all-rookie in 1965. He's in the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. But he also had such a huge impact off of the court after his playing career was over. He started Concerned Athletes in Action, which went around the city and sponsored youth camps that really helped with drug prevention and being able to just shape the minds and the lives of these youth. Eventually, that became Shoot for the Stars, which they added the piece where they taught rigor, discipline, joy, commitment, all of the things critical for success both on and off the basketball court. They do have a mural on one of the buildings in Mantua celebrating Wali Jones for his, not only, I mean, he had a great basketball career in Philadelphia going back to Overbrook, Villanova, and of course the Sixers, but really the stuff he's done off the court to really help the kids in the city of Philadelphia really have a chance and teach them those things that they need to be successful. So Shoot for the Stars is Wali Jones' organization. He runs that with Ken Hamilton, somebody who we'll talk about later in the month. But today's Black History Legacy Maker with Philly ties is Wali Jones, great basketball player on the court, an even better human being off, and all of his work for the youth of the city of Philadelphia. So Wali Jones, today we salute you. On this day in 1968, Wilt Chamberlain had the NBA's first double, triple-double, 22 points, 25 boards, 21 assists. Only one other person, and that is Russell Westbrook, believe it or not, with the double, triple-double, the 20-20-20 game. We will start our Super Bowl coverage finally as the Eagles land in New Orleans later today. Be sure to let me know what your thoughts are of when you knew this team was a Super Bowl team. 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. Also, it's Groundhog's Day. What sports moment, sports year, sports game, whatever moment that you want to relive over and over and over again in Philly sports history. Let me know your thoughts on that. So many to choose from, but I would love to just live from January 2001 to December 31st, 2001. Great time for me personally. Graduated Temple. But between the Sixers, the Eagles finally becoming good, it was our first year with season tickets. The Flyers were almost a perennial Stanley Cup. And then the Phillies with their first winning season since '93. That was a great time period for me. I'd love to live that year all over again. Of course, though, with the money I have now. I was broke as a joke in 2001. But from a sports perspective, it was a fun time. But let me know which era you want to live over and over again in honor of Groundhog's Day. Phil saw his shadow, 6 more weeks of winter, and that's quite all right if we have a Lombardi Trophy. I will take 12 more weeks of winter if that's what it takes to win a Lombardi Trophy. But we will have more tomorrow. Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line. Go have yourselves a Sunday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for February 2nd, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.